on Roland Unfiltered for Monday, February 25th, 2019. We, of course, are out of studio, and we are, of course, with the folks from the 4th Annual School Leaders of Choice Capitol Hill Action Initiative. It's put on by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. We'll be talking with some of the best and brightest black charter school leaders later in the show. But first, we'll deal with the Oscars. Lord, did the Academy somehow save Black History Month? Big winners, Spike Lee, long overdue, wins in his Oscar. And, of course, his speech ticks off Donald Trump. Hit dog will holler. Also, a Green Book win for Best Picture of a Black Klansman and Black Panther. What the hell? And, of course, historic wins for Black Panther, especially Ruth Carter. Will show you those wins. Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax compares sexual assault allegations against him to what? A public lynching. He says, though, it's a political lynching. Wait till you hear what he had to say before the Virginia Senate. Let's talk about R. Kelly. He is still in jail, not out on bond. Of course, he was arrested over the weekend for multiple counts of sexual assault. We'll break that thing down. And plus some new documents out in the Jussie Smollett alleged racial attack. And, of course, you have the superintendent of Chicago Police who told Robin Roberts of Good Morning America that guess what? There's a lot of evidence they have not shown the public that proves that he created this hoax. Also, folks, student athletes at Ole Miss take a knee as a result of a protest march through the town led by, guess what? Some white supremacists. We'll show you that video as well, folks. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go. Huge night last night in Hollywood for a number of African Americans, but one person who has been smiling for the last 24 hours, Spike Lee. He won his first Oscar in his 30-year career for writing the screenplay of Black Klansman. Of course, he also was nominated for Best Picture, and of course, it was only fitting that his fellow Morehouse graduate brother, Samuel Jackson, would be the one to read that Spike Lee, winner of his first Oscar.
And the Oscar goes to...
Oh, the house! Charlie Wachtell, David Rabinowitz, and Kevin Wilmot, and Spike Lee!
This is the first Oscar nomination for Charlie Wachtell, David Rabinowitz, and Kevin Wilmot. It's the first win and 5th nomination for Spike Lee.
All right. Rob. All right. I want to thank Tanya Jackson Satchel. The word today is irony. The date, the 24th, the month, February, which also happens to be the shortest month of the year, which also happens to be Black History Month, the year 2019, the year 1619. History, her story, 1619, 2019, 400 years. 400 years, our ancestors were stolen from Mother Africa and brought to Jamestown, Virginia, enslaved. Our ancestors worked from the land from Kansas City in the morning to Kansas City at night. My grandmother, Zimmy Shelton Retha, who lived to be 100 years young, who was a Spelman College graduate, even though her mother was a slave. My grandma, who saved 50 years of Social Security checks to put her first grandchild, she called me Spiky Poo. She put me through Morehouse College and NYU grad film. NYU. Before the world tonight, I give praise to our ancestors who helped build this country and what is today, along with the genocide of its native people. We all connect with our ancestors. We will have love, wisdom, we will regain our humanity. It will be a powerful moment. The 2020 presidential election is around the corner. Let's all mobilize. Let's all be on the right side of history. Make the moral choice between love versus hate. Let's do the right thing. You know I had to get that in there.
All right, folks. Also, it was a big night for other African Americans. Regina King won Best Supporting Actress for her role in If Beale Street Could Talk, based on James Baldwin's 1974 novel. Mahershala Ali won for Best Supporting Actor in The Green Book. He played pianist Don Shirley. This is, of course, second time in 3 years Ali has won. He won 2 years ago for Moonlight, joining Denzel Washington as the only African Americans to win 2 Oscars. Also, of course, again, Spike Lee won for Best Adapted Screenplay. And then, of course, we, had another big win, and that is 2 black women created history. When it came to Black Panther, here is the first winner.
And the Oscar goes to Hannah Beekler, production design, Jay Hart, set decoration. For Black Panther.
This is the first Oscar nomination for Hannah Beekler. She is the first African American to be nominated in this category.
I stand here stronger than I was yesterday. I stand here with agency and self-worth because of Ryan Coogler, who not only made me a better designer, a better storyteller, a better person. I stand here because of this man who offered me a different perspective of life, who offered me a safe space, who's patient and gave me air, humanity, and brotherhood. Thank you, Ryan. I love you.
I'm stronger today because of this wonderful cast who every day stepped into this world and breathed life into it. Because of Ruth Carter and Rachel Morrison and everything they did behind the camera with me.
I'm stronger because of my family who supported me through the roughest of times. I give the strength to all of those who come next to keep going, to never give up. And when you think it's impossible, just remember to say this piece of advice I got from a very wise woman. I did my best, and my best is good enough. Thank you.
Also, more Black magic. Peter Ramsey won, of course, for Best Animated Feature, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And, of course, also someone who has come from the Spike Lee Film School, Ruth Carter. Of course, she won for Best Costume Design for Black Panther. And check out this reaction from the audience when her name was called.
And the Oscar goes to...
I got it. Yep. Oh, okay.
Nope. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Black Panther, Ruth Carter.
This is the first Oscar and third nomination for Ruth Carter. She was previously nominated in this category for Malcolm X and Amistad.
All right, folks, let's talk about this with our panel. Michael Brown, former vice chair, DNC Finance Committee. Eugene Craig, CEO, Eugene Craig Organization. John Murray, pop culture expert and commentator. First, I want to start with Ruth Carter there. Out of all the folks last night, I mean, first of all, the award was early, but I think she got clearly the loudest reaction. Clearly, that audience has been wanting her to win an Oscar for a very long time, John.
It was a special moment, and I saw her when she was on your show a few weeks ago, talking about the Academy Awards and everything. And so when somebody's put in that amount of time, you're rooting for them. You want them to win, and that was her third nomination. She finally took home the trophy. But I talked to some people who were actually at the show last night, and they said the ovation for Spike Lee was just as loud.
Right.
They said people were rooting for him. You know, Spike has, had a love-hate relationship with Hollywood. They've loved him, they've hated him, but they were loving on him, and they loved on him real good.
And he loved and hated them as well.
And he became the official mascot mascot of the show. Every time somebody said something from the stage, they were cutting to him. I mean, there wasn't a host last night, but his presence was the continuity the show needed.
Eugene, I'm sure you wanted some of those Spike Lee kicks because those were so. Spike went on Instagram, and apparently those were special shoes that Michael Jordan had commissioned for Spike Lee to wear at the Oscars.
He should have them dropped. He should go ahead and drop them bad boys.
No. Limited edition.
He should go ahead and drop them. I'm pretty sure they'll sell out like all the other Jordans.
One of the few things Michael Jordan has ever done for a black person.
Don't want my words, Mike. but on the topic of Ruth, there are very few things that bring out a story like costume design and and set design, and the work and time that she's put into so many stories and helping bring them to life. I mean, you don't get the quality of a motion picture of Black Panther without the costume design that she provided.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, again, when you looked at, throughout the night, whether it was black presenters, whether it was black folks winning, again, I think between R. Kelly and Jussie Smollett, the Oscars somehow, shockingly, 4 years after Oscars So White, saved Black History Month. That was a continuing theme I saw on social media last night.
But it also shows what you do when you make a conscious effort to make sure you have diversity, both presenters, award winners, advertisers, and everyone forgets.
And opening up the Academy to a much more diverse voting public.
No question. And keep in mind the gentleman that won for, I forget the gentleman from Egypt. I mean, remember, Egypt is in Africa. And
for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, exactly. And so it was an impressive night. Really was.
John, look, 5th time in 6 years, a Mexican has won Best Director.
Yeah, and it was so funny watching his speech when he said, I love international films. I used to watch Jaws. And he started talking about all the American films that he watched as American director. Listen, it was a great show. It was fun to watch. I enjoyed the show without the host. I didn't think I would. I'm very pro-host in most award shows, but I enjoy the Oscars without a host. I would like to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson get one time to do it. I think he'd be really great. But they could stick to this no-host formula.
Well, first of all, I thought it moved faster. Yeah. And of course, Kevin Hart was supposed to be the host of the show, yet when folks pulled up previous tweets of his being led to him, them asking him to apologize or drop out, and he chose to say, fine, I'm not going to host it. But I do believe, again, how they utilize the various folks presenting, opening it up with, of course, Maya Rudolph, Tina Fey, and who I'm missing, what's her name? Amy Poehler.
Yes.
I mean, look, they've hosted shows before, absolutely hilarious. But again, I think what you also saw last night, you saw this genuine love for Black Panther. You saw it, obviously, for Spike as well. Let's get to the drama, though, because it ended with Green Book winning Best Picture. Folks were livid, absolutely livid. It's amazing how many people, John, have a love-hate relationship with this movie. Here you have a movie that's supposed to be about Don Shirley. It's amazing classical pianist, but it was written through the prism, through the eyes of the white driver. His son was, of course, one of the writers. And Spike was hot. He was upset.
Saying that like that's a revelation.
But he was really hot. He said, of course, afterwards, he said, damn, I keep losing to movies for people that drive. And so talk about, first of all, your thoughts about the movie itself. Do you think the criticism is earned?
Well, full disclosure, this is the first year that I'd only seen one of the Academy-nominated films. Life is just busy. I had no time to watch movies. But I've read a lot of the stories about Green Book. I understand both sides of the spectrum. But here's the thing. Best Picture always causes problems. I mean, from the year that they thought it was the one film and ended up being Moonlight, you never can tell what movie is going to win Best Film. Sometimes it's these little-known international films. So the fact that Best Picture caused chaos at the Academy Awards, I mean, is water still wet?
Eugene and Michael, here's why I understand that. Because I remember when we had Washington Watch, and we were doing that, and there was a movie that Brian White was involved in. And it was this amazing script about all these hijinks in a hospital. And all the studios wanted the movie. Yeah. They all wanted the movie. Until they found out that the actual doctors in real life were all black. And they all said, no, thank you. Then you had George Lucas. George Lucas told the story when he went to the studios with Red Tails. And the studios literally said, where are the white heroes? He said, the heroes are the black soldiers. And they said, well, all the white people in the movie, they're evil. He said, because they were. He said it was Jim Crow. And they literally all passed. And so Hollywood has this thing where they want white heroes, where when you tell these stories, Legend of Bagger Vance, Glory, Biko, you can go down the line where you have these movies where it's like, hey, you need to have a white guy or a white woman who's the hero in this movie. And that really was how people felt about Green Book, that even Ali, he wins for Best Supporting, but it's like, wait a minute, I thought he's supposed to be the main guy, but the driver was the main guy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is this. The Academy is still 90%, vote.
Well, it's 61% right now white.
Yeah.
They changed it, but still overwhelmingly male, overwhelmingly old, and still majority white.
And the demographics are changing because one of the new standards is if you haven't been in a movie in the last 10 years or something like that, then your membership gradually ends and they keep adding more.
Hello.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be a voting member just because you ain't been in the movie in 40 years.
If you're 99 years old and you can't even press play on the thing to watch your screeners when you
probably shouldn't be voting.
You shouldn't be voting. Yeah.
But the thing is this still with it being 60% white and still overwhelming male, you vote for what you identify with. I mean that's basic knowledge, basic political knowledge, and these award shows, the Oscars, the Grammys, the Golden Globes, they are huge insider game political spectrums. That's what they are. I mean, Netflix doesn't spend $25 million to try to get to push their film for awards. If it's not an insider political spectrum game. So it's not necessarily shocking that Green Book comes out over Black Klansman and Black Panther. I think there's also an argument to be made that with two high-profile black films that they chopped up the vote similarly what just happened at the Grammys a couple weeks ago with Black Album.
But here's a piece, Michael. We do have to deal with this reality that when you talk about Hollywood, this whole idea of white redemption. Of course, Spike still is livid that Do the Right Thing was not nominated for Best Picture. Driving Miss Daisy wins. When you think about when Crash won, people were very upset with that as well. And so Hollywood has this history of the white hero, the white savior when it involves African Americans. And so, and then of course, in the year Malcolm X was not nominated for Best Picture, not nominated for Best Director, and then, of course, Denzel loses to Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman, which really was a Lifetime Achievement Award for Al Pacino. And so you do see African Americans who are saying, hey, we want to see authentic black stories told from our perspective also be acknowledged.
Well, I guess when you mentioned Denzel, I guess arguably Denzel should have 4.
Sam Jackson should have at least 3.
Absolutely. And nothing against Mr. Shirley and clearly his accomplishments, but we've kind of seen that story before. Yeah. We've never seen anything like Black Panther before. And really, if they really want to turn the corner, which they clear to be trying to do, both with presenters and awardees, is to say, why not a black superhero be in Best Picture?
Well,
that would have been.
But just to that point, though, typically big budget Marvel films don't get nominated. So we can't deny the progress that was made last night.
No, absolutely not.
The Academy Awards look like the NAACP Image Awards. Between the presenters and the winners.
True. Very true.
It looked good.
You didn't joke about it saving Black History Month for a reason. So Wakanda forever to the Academy. And I'm excited to see if they continue to make progress in the years to come.
Well, speaking of not making progress, of course, we have the orange one who decided to wake up this morning and get in on this. Of course, Donald Trump decided to weigh in on Spike Lee winning. This is what he tweeted. Be nice if Spike Lee could read his notes. Really? A man who can't even read a teleprompter, or better yet, not have to use notes at all when doing his racist hit on your president, who has done more for African Americans, criminal justice reform, lowest unemployment numbers in history, tax cuts, etc., than almost any other prez. Okay, beyond the obvious lies in that tweet, I mean, the numerous lies in that tweet, trust me, Donald Trump will never be ahead of President Lyndon Baines Johnson or Abraham Lincoln or Franklin Delano Roosevelt or Harry Truman or what the hell, or yes, Jimmy Carter or Barack Obama. So right, hell, right.
Were any of our presidents mute? I mean, because he wouldn't even be ahead of.
I mean, come on. But here's the piece, though. Spike never mentioned Michael Trump in his speech. That was hit dog hollers.
Yes.
And you know what's interesting? He always talks about how the ratings are down with the Oscars, and then he was watching. So he was clearly watching. It's just the hypocrisy. I'm hoping people, when they see his tweets, now just don't even care anymore. They're just like, whatever.
And because he likes ratings are down with all award shows. Yeah. Consumers just aren't consuming TV in the traditional magnitude in which they used to. So, like, Grammys are down, NAACP Image Awards are down. Everybody's show and platform is down because people have a lot of options.
Also, people are watching differently. And so when you talk about these shows, you have to factor in, yes, the television ratings, but also the streaming numbers as well.
The thing is this, he has no space to talk about anybody reading or comprehending anything when we're getting reports that his own trade deal has to be broken down for him in the form of a contract. Like, your trade representative is hammering out a huge, bilateral deal with
and they
China.
give him a 4x6 card.
And they're giving
you can't
4x6 cards.
You can't read.
I mean, it's sad. It's sad.
Well, again, this is, again, somebody who first of all, his name was not mentioned last night.
Never. One
time. And I think that's probably what ticked him off.
Absolutely.
And so all of a sudden, okay, let me try to get in on this conversation. No, you're irrelevant. So, we're going to focus on Spike, focus on Regina King, focus on everybody else who won, and not what Donald Trump has to say. All right, then. So, but to your point, we will see now the Oscars are over. NAACP is taking place March 30th in Los Angeles. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Black Panther wins Best Picture there. I'm just saying. Okay.
Or if there's a tie. We have a tie. It's Black Panther and Black Klansman.
That's a hell of a tie.
But it is interesting. But it is still very interesting how the Oscars embrace this Spike Lee film, which, if you ask those of us who are huge Spike Lee fans, probably would not rank in the top 10. Just saying. All right, y'all. Gotta go to a break. We come back. More on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. All right, folks, it's almost March. And of course, folks are trying to get focused on beach season when it hopefully will warm up. And so many folks are trying to get themselves healthy and fit and losing some weight. And one of the ways you can do that is with the D-Herbs Full Body Cleanse. Now, of course, as I told you earlier, I spent the first part of the year, about 20 days doing that. Nothing but fresh fruits, vegetables, and nuts as well. And so they got about 27 different cleanses that you can try, all about for you trying to get yourself healthy. And so you can do it to remove toxicity from your body, but also for you, if you want to, if you're feeling a little sluggish, you want to get some more energy as well. So here's what you need to do. All you need to do is simply go to their website, dherbs.com, and use the promo code Roland for a discount at checkout. Now, what you can also do is call 1-866-4DHERBS, 1-866-4DHERBS. It's all about, again, you trying to improve your health, improve your life, and trying to make for a much better 2019. So do us a favor. We'd love to hear your stories as well. If you do try the D-Herbs Full Body Cleanse, send us a photo and let us know how it goes. So again, go to dherbs.com or call 1-866-4DHERBS. Use the promo code Roland. Let's hit at the top of the show, folks. We're here in D.C. where the issue of school choice, charter schools, is a huge issue. And this is the 4th annual School Leaders of Color Capitol Hill Action Initiative. Now, of course, we were in Atlanta on Friday for our School Choice is the Black Choice Town Hall. This event is put on by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. It's the largest ever convening of Black, Hispanic, Asian, and Native American charter school leaders who lead high-performing, high-quality schools. They're here to share best practices and to demand continued funding for charter schools across the nation. Now, anybody knows that I am a supporter of all forms of education, whether it's a traditional public schools, charter, magnet, homeschool, online school, technical, you name it, doesn't matter, as long as it is working for our children. Joining us right now is Elsie Urita, correct? All right, just making sure we got it right. Founder, Executive Director, Tulsa Honor Academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Latricia Shatton, Chatting? All right, just double checking here. Of course, she is school director for the Susie King Taylor Community School in Georgia, and Dr. Narciso Garcia, superintendent for Vanguard Academy Charter School out of Texas. Where in Texas?
Far, Texas. Right next to McAllen, Texas. Right next
Far,
to
Texas?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
see, you know nobody knows when you say, I'm right next to this city, right next to this city, right next to the border. All right, then. Glad to have all of you here. This is, of course, one of the issues that, of all issues out there, one of the few issues where I have purposely chosen to step outside of my role as journalist, because I do fundamentally believe that education is the 21st century civil rights issue. And what is still amazing to me is to have these fights with folks who are caught up in charters, non-charters, and you're going, yo, it's education. They're still public schools. And so how do you deal with, again, the attacks and the criticism for people who just cannot stand the notion of charter schools? Anybody jump in?
I can lead off. I just stay focused, myself and our staff and our students and our parents stay focused on our mission and vision for the school district. Even though we are attacked or criticized, just don't lose your focus, and the proof will be in the pudding at the end of the school year when the test results are out, and also when college graduation or high school graduation, when the data comes out, you will see where charter schools are ranked, and the number of students that they have either graduating from high school or from college far supersede other school districts. So I just let the results speak for themselves.
How many students do you serve? We
serve 4,200 students in our school district.
And is that different? Is that K through 12?
K through 12, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, and we talk about the idea of results. To me, that should be the focus for any school. It doesn't matter whether it's magnet or traditional school or public charter school. At the end of the day, it should be, what are the results? Are kids learning? Are they graduating? Are they going on to college? Are they succeeding in life?
Yeah, I completely agree. When you look at our results, our students are performing 2, 3, sometimes even 5 times higher than their neighborhood schools. And a lot of times people think, oh, well, you get more funding. And that's just a huge misconception. It's actually the opposite. We actually get less funding than traditional district schools. And I often say we do so much with so little. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm here this weekend. I would love for us to get more equitable funding. And really for the state of Oklahoma, we need more equitable funding across education, period. But specifically, we get about 75 cents to every dollar that the neighborhood schools get, and we're outperforming them often by multiples. So yeah, I completely agree. I think we need to be judged by how our students are achieving and how much they're growing. And like Narciso said, the proof is in the pudding.
And I would also add that while, we want to judge schools based on how they're performing on state tests and other benchmarks, there are unquantifiable measures in which our students are succeeding. Speaking for myself in Savannah, our district is predominantly African American, and we have parents who come to us not knowing what a charter school is, but just wanting a better choice for their children than what they were offered. And so being able to educate them on what their choices are in terms of school choice, and also having parents come back to us and saying our kids are better than they were before, academically or emotionally, it's also important.
Well, and again, what jumps out at me is, we say school choice, but this is really parental choice. I mean, I've come across numerous parents across this country, and their deal is, look, I don't care about your plan. I don't care about the latest new idea. Their deal is, I want to make sure that my kid has a shot at life, and they don't care about the politics. They don't care about the contracts. They don't care about all the drama. Their deal is, can my kid get educated?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. And for us, parent choice is very strong. So, me as a parent, I would want my son or daughter to succeed in life and then come back and give back and be an impact to the community. If a parent has a choice of where their child goes to school, well, guess what? That parent is going to choose a school or a campus that will prepare that child not just for the academics, but also for life. And that's why choice is very important. And our parents are choosing wisely.
But also, I think we have to, as folks who are in this movement, have to also have honest conversations.
Yes.
And that is, there are some people who have charter schools who should be run out of this industry, because what they're doing is they are stealing. They are hurting children. And when you have schools that are not performing, that are shutting down in the middle of a school year, right before school starts, that causes a lack of trust from parents and others. And I keep saying, we've got to be honest and say bad charters must be shut down and those folks not be allowed to open schools again.
I completely agree. That actually is part of the misconceptions that are being spread. There's one bad school, one bad charter school. It hurts the reputation of the rest of the charter schools, especially in a community like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where there's not very many charters. If one of them struggles, then people just think, oh, it's a charter school. You run a charter school? Is it like this other one? No, we're very, very different. And so if those bad charter schools continue to operate, they give us a bad name and they hurt us. So it's not just the communities, the students that they're serving or that they have to close down in the middle of the year. It actually impacts a much larger community. So
well, here's what amazes me also when I hear people say, oversight, and I'm going, well, where in the hell was the oversight of this school that failed kids for 20 years? I'm like, was anybody else paying attention? And when we see that in a lot of districts where you have schools that when you check scores, when you check graduation rates, I mean, they have been failing not 2 or 3 years, not 5, not 10, some 15, 20, 30. And I'm going, where's the oversight there? Because and when you talk about failing that long, now we're getting into generational failure. Now we're getting into, if you fail for 20 years, well, if a kid, that means that you are on your second generation of kids who have gone through that particular school. That to me is a problem.
And I totally agree. But also, I think we need to keep in mind that there are traditional public schools that have been failing kids for much longer than that, and that we have to look at the measures by which we're measuring charter schools. If you have a classical education charter school and you're using traditional benchmarks to measure them, then they are going to fail. And it doesn't mean that kids aren't learning, and it doesn't mean that they're not being successful. It means that they cannot be measured by the tests that they're being used to have their success rated. And so we have to look at how districts are measuring schools and making sure that they're fair assessments. Because if not, it is going to look like a school is failing, when in reality, we're asking charter schools to be innovative and then using traditional measurements to measure them.
When you talk about education, is there far too much focus on tests? For you, when you're in your schools, how are you measuring whether a child is learning? Because one of the issues that I have is that we have another generation of kids, for me, who don't have the ability to think. And what I mean by that is you're going to be in situations where you can't Google something. You can't watch a YouTube video to know how it gets done. Yeah. And so you literally have to have the ability to think your way through the situation in order to understand what's going on.
Yeah. I think that for us, I don't want to say that state scores are not important, right? Yes, they are important, but to me, the way I measure student success in our school district is by looking at the data from 6-7 years ago. So the first graduating class of Vanguard Academy was in 2013. And if people really want to see how successful an organization was in preparing a student for college, all you have to do is go back and look at their second year of matriculation in college to see if they persisted. So if the class of 2013, 94% went on to college, what was the students in the seat the second year of college? Was it the same or was it lower? When I went back and studied the class of 2013, 94% of the students that registered for the first year of college matriculated their second year of college. To me, that's how I measure success. Yes, a test is important, but preparing these kids for college and life is actually even more important.
I will say we're a new charter school. So we just had our founding 5th grade class just became 8th graders. And we were thankfully approved to start our high school next year. So we don't have that historical data yet. And so test scores do help us figure out where our kids are at and helps us figure out if they're growing at the right rate to ensure us that they can get to college. But those aren't the only skills that we're teaching our kids. We tell our kids that for us, education is not just intellectual knowledge. It's also character. And in order to persist through college, you have to have a strong ethical character to persevere.
Yep.
So for us, in education is not just the test scores. It's everything else. And there's a lot of other things that we don't measure. That's anecdotal. That we collect anecdotal data with our staff, and we're constantly checking in that regard. But we do use test scores to make sure that our kids are learning, because at the end of the day, kids are going to have to take tests to get into college, whether we like it or not, whether we think that those tests are fair or not. They have to take a test score to be accepted into college. And if we believe that a college degree is access, it is opportunity, and it opens doors for our kids, we have to get them through that door.
So you're here on Capitol Hill. What have those conversations been like? And where are you getting the most pushback from folks who say, I'm not really down with school choice?
I think the biggest pushback we get is in funding, where people say you're taking dollars out of the public school classroom. And we have to remind them charter schools are public schools too. And
I don't understand why that's so hard.
I don't either.
They literally are called public charter schools, which is public.
Yes. Absolutely. And not only that, charter schools start at about 75% of the funding of a traditional public school student. And then there are authorization fees, so that's another 3% we lose on top of that.
And when you talk about, again, those fees, by getting less, most states, and I know some people are trying to change the law, you're not allowed to use any of those dollars allocated for a student towards construction, in terms of buildings.
Yes.
Yet you're competing against traditional schools where, based upon a bond offering, they might be moving into a new 60, 70, 80, $100 million school. You can't do that.
And on top of that, your charter school may be closed for a poor facility, but you couldn't get the funding to get a decent facility to keep it open.
So it's like I've done a study, I conducted an analysis, right? And I said, okay, and I'll go back to the numbers in a little bit, but when a student leaves a traditional school district and they move on to another school district, why doesn't the school district complain about them losing that student? But when they lose that student to a charter school district, that's when the complaining starts that, look, I'm losing my money. Well, you're already losing the money if the student's going to another public traditional school district.
Or if they're going to a private school. Or somewhere else. I mean, because the allocation is based upon the number of pupils.
Yes, correct.
No, I was going to say in Oklahoma, we have very, very low per pupil funding. So this is actually
how much? Okay, we said no. For folks who are watching, what is
the baseline? The baseline starts at $3,000 per student.
Per student.
Per student.
What is it for where you are in Georgia?
$8,100.
About $5,500.
So baseline is $3,000, and then you, depending on the needs of the students, you get a little bit more. So because we serve a high need students, we get about $5,000 per kid. But when you look at the larger context of the nationwide, that's very, very little. And there's also, like you said, school districts, they're actually wanting to use some of the bond money to be able to pour in education, but because of the laws, they can't. So local school districts sometimes get criticized that, oh, look at this beautiful building. And they're like, well, my hands are tied. And if they feel like that, imagine us who are charters that get even less money. So that's just to put some context into funding. It's not just not equitable nationwide. It also, there's disparities from state to state, and then also within each state from city to suburbs, et cetera. I mean, the disparities are wide ranging. If we could level the playing field on a national level, I think that would be a really great first start.
Well, here's the thing that, for me, to close this out, that really jumps out, and that is when people say, oh, I hate charter schools, I hate school choice. Okay, well, explain to me then why in some places there are waiting lists of 5, 10, 20,000 parents. Okay, that right there says all you need to know. Because to me, what parents are saying is, I don't like what's happening right now. The option, as far as I'm concerned, for traditional schools, fix it.
Correct.
If you hate charters that much, okay, cool. Fix that traditional school. But that parent is saying, I'm not waiting for your 5, 10-year plan, because my kid's going to be gone by then. And that's where I think for me, at the end of the day, it boils down to is, what does that parent want for their kid, and what is the best thing for that kid? If people can remove their feelings and their emotions and politics from this and focus on the children, to me, this is a different conversation.
Absolutely.
Does a parent want a 20, 30, 40, 50, $70 million stadium? Or do they want a great education and future for their child? That's a choice that they're making, and they're making that choice every day. If we had more money or more funding for facilities, we could easily help them make that choice, and there wouldn't be any waiting lists.
Well, and also, we have to be real honest. Every presidential election, people say, I want to be the education president. But when people go to the polls, the reality is education is not the number one issue they're voting on.
That is
correct. It's not. And we were actually talking about this before this interview. One of the things that I dislike the most about my job is having to play the politics, if you will, and having to dispel all of these myths. I just want to be able to get in the work with my teachers, get more books for my kids, just really do the work. Unfortunately, because of the disparities, we have to do this part of the job. But it would be great if we could take the politics out, like you said. If parents are demanding it, there's long wait lists at our schools. There's a demand, and we're producing the results. Mm-hmm. Why can't we provide this service? I mean, I just want to be able to put the politics aside and do the work.
Well, we would love to put it aside for a lot of stuff. That ain't how we operate. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch, and it's certainly glad to see what you're doing. And keep the focus on the kids, and everything will be good.
Thank you.
All right, folks, got to go to a break right now. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks, hashtag HBCU Giving Day. Our focus, of course, Jarvis Christian College, founded in 1912, located in Hawkins, Texas. If you want to support Jarvis Christian, go to jarvis.edu, jarvis.edu. All right, folks, calling all HBCU alumni, students, and leaders, enter the Ford Motor Company HBCU Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. Now, the winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement their proposal. The deadline to apply is March 31st, 2019. Be sure to go to FGB.life for more information and to apply. And remember, Ford goes further in our community. All right, folks, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, on the last day of the session in Virginia, gave an apparently impromptu speech about allegations of sexual assault lodged against him. Now, of course, it started with a state senator praising Fairfax for his work, but then he had this to say.
One of you, and I appreciate your words and sentiments very much, the words of encouragement that I have received and my family has received. And I will say this, the reason that I've been able to preside in the way that I have is that God is good and the truth is on my side. And I am very firm in both of those things. And my faith is unshakable. And I am grateful to each one of you for what you have done to give me the space to do what needs to be done and say what needs to be said and prove what needs to be proven. But I will also say this, and this was not something I planned to talk about. We talked a lot on this floor about wrongs that have happened in the past and that we are at an intersection of history right here in this moment in the Commonwealth of Virginia. 400 years since the meeting of this General Assembly in 1619. And 400 years since the first enslaved Africans were brought here to the Commonwealth of Virginia in Hampton and Point Comfort. And those are the two strands that have run through the veins of the Commonwealth of Virginia and through this nation for those 4 centuries. And those are the 2 demons that we have had to battle and choose which course we are going to take. And in this moment, we have to decide what the next 400 years look like. And if we go backwards in a rush to judgment, if we eliminate due process, which was brought to the states by the 14th Amendment, ironically, in this case, a post-Civil War amendment along with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, meant to give, finally, rights and due process to people who had been denied it for their entire existence on this soil. If we go backwards and we rush to judgment and we allow for political lynchings without any due process, any facts, any evidence being heard, then I think we do a disservice to this very body in which we all serve. And I want to stand in this moment in the truth, not only which has tested my Constitution personally, but is testing the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia and of the United States of America. And I want to stand in this moment as someone who hopefully represents a new way forward, where everyone should always be heard, and everyone should always get due process, and we should always go forward toward the truth. So we have a chance to be an example, once again, to the world at this very tough moment in history, and we're either going to take it or we are going to deny ourselves the opportunity to be leaders. And so I love my family, I love you all, and I promise you that I will stand very firm and very strong. And as I have said from day one, I am very confident in the truth. I want a full investigation because I am confident in the truth and because everyone deserves due process. And so I turned 40 last Sunday, and I have lived 40 years accusation-free. And there's a reason for that. And none of this is a coincidence. But we have to decide who we are. And I'm happy to be just one representative example of whether or not we're going to rise to the better angels of our nature or go back down a very dark political road where 50 years ago, had fingers been pointed at me in the exact same way, it'd be a very different outcome. I would not be standing up here on the dais. A very different outcome would have happened with no facts, no due process, no evidence, no nothing. And so I'm standing firm in that truth for anyone who's ever been a victim of any kind. And I'm making sure that everyone is heard, everyone's due process rights are protected, and that we decide that we're going to be very different than what we've been in terms of our Commonwealth, in terms of our country. And I've heard much about anti-lynching on the floor of this very Senate, where people were not given any due process whatsoever, and we rue that. We talk about hundreds, at least 100 terror lynches that have happened in the Commonwealth of Virginia under those very same auspices, and yet we stand here in a rush to judgment with nothing but accusations and no facts, and we decide that we are willing to do the same thing. So I trust in my God, I trust in the fairness of each one of you, I trust in your good hearts, and this is much bigger than me, I can assure you, much bigger than me. And I am very hopeful, and I believe very firmly that we will get to a better place and rise to the better angels of our nature. And should anyone decide that they desire to see a downfall of me or the Constitution or of victims or of anyone else, I would just ask that you look and reflect and think about who you are, think about who we are, and think about who we want to be. And I promise you, if we do that, we will end up in the right place. So God bless you all. Thank you very much. I'm proud of every single one of you.
All right, folks, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist, author of How Exceptional Black Women Lead, was supposed to be on our panel today. She had to cancel at the last second. But today, though, she posted a column on medium.com. And I just want to read for you the headline. She said, Justin Fairfax was right to invoke Virginia's lynching past. And so I want to read something from this is what she wrote. African Americans especially understand the dangers of so-called swift justice. We have lived in a country that for centuries have handed out such based on the accuser's word alone. Yes, we have seen it in days gone by, swinging at the end of the lyncher's rope. We have also seen it in various contemporary contexts with results just as disturbing. We've all witnessed the birth of a different movement, one which sought to highlight the importance of black lives and one that was necessitated by the reality of murdered black men, women, and children. She goes on to write, in the Fairfax case specifically, I, for one, find it curious that from the very beginning, only one party has consistently requested the involvement of law enforcement to get to the facts. I also find it curious that only one party has asked for a thorough investigation, not merely a belated call for only a General Assembly hearing, a space prime for political stunts and theatrics, rather than having a neutral, full, and fair search for the truth. And I find it especially curious that the only parties seeking these outcomes have been the accused and neither of the accusers. Now, Avis, native of, lives in Virginia. She's a voter there. She says, look, as a matter of fact, when you, at the bottom of her post, award-winning author, international speaker, passionate entrepreneur, unapologetic sister. And so she's making the point that, hey, wait a minute, okay? I'm a feminist, but he should be able to have a due process. And again, she's supposed to be on the panel. I wish she could have been here to further explain her column. But what do you make of, again, a state senator standing up, praising Justin Fairfax for how he has led the assembly, and then him giving that impromptu speech?
Well, I think, and to take a piece from Avis, in this Me Too Time's Up era, due process has been reversed. It's guilty until proven innocent. If there's an accusation against you, you're going to lose your job and you have to earn it back. You'll take you off television and then you can get back on. And so, and people say that if you don't believe the victims initially or the alleged victims initially, then you're victim shaming. We've got to figure out a way to be able to allow due process to take its place. We got to let investigations take its place. We've got to figure out the truth in these matters. Now, it's one thing when you got 65, 70 women coming out telling the same story. Everybody's not telling the same lie. But in a situation like this, where it may be one or two people and there could be a misunderstanding, there's a lot left here to interpret. You've got to do an investigation. I, too, am a Virginia resident. I'm a native. I voted there. You know, I'm kind of frustrated with everybody in office right now. I kind of want to take the whole state and do an overhaul. Call an emergency election. Do something to fix this situation because the 1, 2, and 3 have problems. And so I understand the point that she's making, and we do need to get real answers in this situation.
Michael, the thing I keep asking this question, and I'm not understanding why it's not happening. You take Vanessa Tyson. She says that he sexually assaulted her, forced her to perform oral sex in Boston, 2004 Democrat National Convention. You have a district attorney who has said, if a criminal complaint is filed, I will investigate. Tyson's lawyers released a statement saying she's going to meet with the DA, but that was more than a week ago. And but they said they want her and also Watson to testify at an impeachment hearing. What I don't understand is that the one process that really has teeth is the DA. That's a criminal investigation. And so I don't understand why that's really not a focus as opposed to this push for a hearing, a public hearing before the Virginia Assembly. It's about impeachment.
Well, one's political and one's about the law. And due process is about the law when you go deal with a district attorney, when you deal with court. And that's what, you know, the accused deserves to look their accuser in the eye, or at least through due process, through an independent arbiter, whether it's a district attorney, whether it's a judge. And that's what can happen. So you call people's bluffs and you see what happens and let the chips fall where they may. Clearly, the lieutenant governor would love to have a full, and it shouldn't be in the political form. He wants to do it in a legal form, which frankly is more appropriate. And then to your point, to make sure that we have some vehicle in the future where people can't just make accusations because they want to destroy somebody's life, you have to back it up.
Eugene, again, Meredith Watson, who said Justice Fairfax raped her at Duke when they were students in 2000. In her initial statement, she said that she's not suing him, not for money. She doesn't want to do media. She doesn't want to even talk about it further, but she wanted him to resign. Now her folks are saying she'll gladly testify. Here's my piece. Okay, again, haven't been raped, haven't accused anybody of rape, but if I want justice.
You want real justice?
If I can't file a criminal suit, I'm going to hit you with a civil suit.
Yeah.
But that to me, but to hear, oh, I'll testify in a hearing to impeach, I'm going, well, if you're willing to testify publicly in that hearing, why not sue?
The thing is that with the public testimony, at least when it comes to impeachment hearing, there's no accountability on the accuser. If she was to sue civilly, she'll be deposed by the other side, which probably will reveal holes in her story. If she was to open up a criminal complaint, she'll be, cross-examined by the prosecuting side. I mean, it'd be a full examination of the story rather than just her side of the story or how she wants to present the story being presented. But to speak to Avis's point, for movements to have the validity that they want and need to really get truly nasty people up out of here, you got to get it right. You can't get it quick. You got to get it right. And part of getting it right is having due process.
Well, again, at the end of the day, I'd say if there's anybody who's watching and if they accuse somebody of something, I want their story to be heard. I want it to be investigated. And if you're the one who's being accused, I want it to be investigated as well. And so we'll see exactly where this story goes. But the thing I'm looking for is whether or not the DA in Boston, if that criminal complaint is going to be filed. And if it's not, I've got some questions, because that to me is a much more different proceeding than an impeachment proceeding led by Republicans in the Virginia House. That's a
keep in mind, due process doesn't mean you don't believe the woman. Due process means due process.
You examine all the facts.
And to make a quick parallel, in the Bill Cosby case, everybody wanted Bill Cosby to come out and say, I did not do this. He wouldn't. Everybody wanted Bill Cosby to respond in a major way. He wouldn't. And then there was a laundry list of documents that supported the fact that he paid to keep women quiet. He suppressed women's careers so they could not speak out and have their voice heard. In this case, you have the gentleman who's been accused saying, I want an investigation. I'm going to prove to y'all that I'm innocent. And you've got to kind of respect that as well.
All right, then. So we'll keep certainly following this story. All right, folks, out of Chicago, R. Kelly is still in jail. That's right. He appeared today in court in a bright orange jail uniform with his lawyer entering a plea of not guilty to the charges. He sexually abused 4 victims, 3 of them underage, over a 12-year period. Now, the indictments announced Friday by Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox were partially the result of a videotape provided to law enforcement by attorney Michael Avenatti. Avenatti said today that he has another tape showing Kelly having sex with a 14-year-old girl, same girl as the first tape, but a year later in 2000. Now, some of you may be saying, wait a minute, he was found not guilty in that case, but because the prosecutors in 2002 charged him with child pornography, this is a different charge, so double jeopardy doesn't apply. And so even though one of these accusers involves the same young woman who was then 14, because it's a different charge, again, double jeopardy does not apply. Now, R. Kelly has to post a $100,000 bond. The bill was set at $1 million, has to post a $100,000 bond. His attorney says, look, he doesn't have the money. And some reports say young women have been calling around trying to find a way to help him pay his bail. This is still, and in fact, Jean, what's interesting is that one of the women who is a part of this particular indictment here, she went to his trial in 2008. He gave her his phone number. She went there supporting R. Kelly.
You talking about Geronda Pace, absolutely.
So here you have an allegation where a woman who went to trial saying he didn't do it.
Cheered for him daily, skipped school.
Cheered for him daily, skipped school, gave him his number, now says he had sex with me when I was 16.
Listen, I had some breaking news for you in the R. Kelly thing. So you talked about how he needs to put up the $100,000. He had a friend that showed up at the Chicago courthouse today to pay the $100,000, and the Chicago court said, we'll take that if you have the $160,000 additionally for his back child support.
Now, in court today, though, his attorney said that those two things were separate, that he didn't have to pay the child support in order to pay the bail.
That's what the attorney was saying. Literally, right before we went on air just now, I'm speaking to someone who's at the courthouse with the person who was attempting to pay the bail, the friend who was going to loan him the money. Now they're trying to galvanize their funds because you have to have one payment, one cashier's check, one credit card, one sum of cash. So he was going to pay the $100,000. They said, you can leave that money here, but he's not going anywhere unless you have another $160,000. He's got to pay it all, or he's going to stay in jail the rest of the week.
Michael, this is what also I think is a huge change from the first trial. first trial, R. Kelly was still a huge star, was putting out music. They were playing on radio stations. He was still performing concerts. You've now seen over the last, I dare say, 3 to 5 years where he has not been performing in major venues. They've gone after the music on streaming. A lot of stations are not playing his music. They've shut him down in a lot of places here in the United States. Also, if he did perform, it was to half-empty venues. Now he can't even perform internationally because his passport has been turned over. So what happened was the people have been fighting R. Kelly, trying to bring him to justice. They put the squeeze on him financially, and now he's facing a much different situation in 2019 than he did in 2002 or 2008. In fact, he even kept that case going for 6 years before he went to trial.
And I think the final nail in the coffin was obviously that awful documentary that was played a couple weeks ago. What was it, 6-part series, 7-part series?
Lifetime, 6-part.
And I think with that, many more people knew, because whatever he was able to keep quiet over the last decade or so, clearly after that, everyone knows clearly, or he would have been able to write the check for $100,000 in 2 seconds.
Well, Eugene, what you did have, you had Kim Fox, who came out saying, if you have any information, any evidence regarding R. Kelly sexually assaulting underage girls, bring it to us. So to have a prosecutor make a public plea, then of course you have Avenatti turning over one tape, now turning over a second tape. So what you have is the walls that were protective of R. Kelly, and let's just be clear, when money runs out,
listen,
folks' mouths open up.
Listen, so you got a couple quick hits here. First and foremost, R. Kelly got somebody in this camp that's dropping these tapes. That's handing right over to Avenatti. I mean, these tapes aren't just magically popping up. Somebody in his camp's handing those things over. Secondly, he probably should get used to, instead of asking if somebody has his shots and passport, getting asked if he has his shots and passport. It looks like he can be sitting in jail for a very long time. But I think one thing we probably should talk about is the role that a lot of the new docs are playing and moving issues forward. You know, I don't think we get to this point without that documentary.
No doubt.
And this documentary was done solely for that purpose.
Solely for that purpose.
At Lifetime that fought with her higher-ups to put this on, when they objected to it, did this because they wanted to free black girls from his house.
And one topic of the documentary, I'm interested to see, you know, the Michael Jackson documentary is coming out in roughly a week. I'm interested to see how the culture shifts after that one drops.
Well,
are we really going to cancel Thriller?
First, in the case of Mike Jackson, he did.
That's the point.
At the end of the day,
and we're not going to exhume him to try to recreate.
Right, you ain't going to exhume him to kill him again.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. But I think the difference here is not just the fact that, well, this is what happened years ago, 2 decades ago. That it continues. And that's the difference.
R. Kelly became the O.J. Simpson of the music industry.
Yes.
Once he avoided justice the first time around, he became notorious. He thought he was invincible. Lots of people, I know people.
And he was.
Yes, you know why? He was invincible because the girls in his house did not look like Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift. If R. Kelly was into underage white girls, allegedly underage white girls, he would have gotten him a long time ago.
But also, I think he
was also pumping out hits for the entire music industry.
Well, and that's the piece. Look, let's cut to the chase. The music industry is as flawed, nasty, and despicable as any other.
Most of all.
As long as you can keep making money, they don't care. It changed when he was no longer the ATM machine.
R. Kelly can still make a hit. People just got to the point that they we don't want it.
Right. No, that's my point. So when I say making money, the public still has to buy it.
Absolutely.
And so when when it changed, look, you knew when it changed when he had a concert in Chicago and he got canceled.
Absolutely. And listen, he's done these tours. The tours are very scaled down. Most times now it's him and a DJ because the tours were being done to pay off his IRS debt. He sold off so much of his publishing, and he was probably going to go to some of the performance rights groups this week, BMI, Sound Exchange, and try to get an advance or some performance rights money to get him out. But whatever the case, he was living concert to concert, tour to tour. He had Germany, Dubai, and Australia that he was supposed to do this spring as a way to get some more liquid cash, but he won't be getting that money now. I
bet he is going to regret it. Like, man, not hopping his butt on the plane and going to some other country.
I'm not going to lie to you. When the indictment came out, I said to myself, if I'm his team, I said, go ahead and make you some friends in Abu Dhabi or somewhere, hop on a plane, get up out of here. You may never come back to the States.
He ain't that smart. Michael, final comment.
Yeah, real quick on the Michael Jackson matter. There's also a level of fairness that's not right about what HBO is doing. And keep in mind, I haven't seen any documentary on Elvis. Didn't Elvis marry a 14-year-old girl?
Did.
So, I mean, where's the documentary on that? Where's the level of fairness?
And they still say he the king.
Oh, he not black.
All right, folks, so let's talk about Mississippi. While the pro-Confederate Good Old Boys were marching through Oxford, Mississippi on Saturday to protest the decision to get rid of the Ole Miss mascot, Colonel Reb, members of the Ole Miss basketball team had a protest of their own. They took a knee during the national anthem. Now, the Colonel Reb mascot is a white goateed, cane-toting Southern plantation owner that's been criticized as being racist. Coach Kermit Davis had no problem with his players protesting the march or the way they chose to do it. And so you see there, so about 8 of the players, 8 of the players kneeled. About 3 African Americans, they remain standing, while the white players remain standing as well. That's kind of bold at Ole Miss because first we're talking about a university that for a long time they would wave the rebel flag at their games, and then they stopped that. The head coaches shut it down by saying that can't be our symbol. Plus, it's going to be a little hard to recruit black ball players. You have the rebel flag that's flying as well. But to have this Colonel Reb still as their mascot, I mean, what you're seeing here is that Reverend Jackson always makes this point that it's black folks that also have been forcing the South to change. And Mississippi is the last bastion. Mississippi and Alabama are the last 2.
Yeah, it is funny. So as a Virginia resident, I went to a school called Jeb Stuart High School. Didn't know the history or the context of who Jeb Stuart was. And for several years at my school, I was the school mascot. I wore that Confederate outfit with the big head and the big Mickey Mouse size head. And now I look back on that. I look back on yearbook photos, and I'm like, what was I thinking? But when you know better, you do better. I wish I was one of those kids that knew the history of what was going on.
You put a mask on, you know what the hell it was.
Didn't even know it was. Just knew I was having a good time at a football game. So I applaud. Not only do I applaud the kids for doing what they did, the only thing I don't like is that some of them still had to go to Twitter to explain the context of them taking a knee. And the fact that we keep having to explain why we're taking a knee for social justice and for civil rights, and the whole narrative has been flipped by Trump and other people who push back against it. That part I don't like. But I'm proud of these guys, and I want more to keep doing it.
But Eugene, here's the reality. And I keep saying this: white folks have no clue overall about how black folks view the flag, view the anthem differently. I keep taking people back to the book of Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson's book was called I Never Had It Made. He says in his book, as long as there's one African American who has to deal with injustice, then none of us are fully free. And what gets me is when you see people like dumbass Jason Whitlock who say, oh, you didn't go through the same thing Jason Whitlock went through. No, Whitlock's issue is not, Jackie Robinson's issue is not, I went through racism differently than somebody else. He's saying, as a black man, he said in his book, I cannot look at that flag, the national anthem, the same way.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the thing is this. It happens to one of us, happen to all of us. It happens to Michael, it can happen to me. It's the reality of being black in America. That, you got to, be twice as good to, get half as far. But, thank God for the internet. We can even out those playing field, those odds these days. But you know what I would say? Thank you, Colin Kaepernick. Because of the heat that Colin's dealt with for the last 2 years, those players could stand at an Ole Miss and take a knee, while Confederates are walking and marching through the campus and do it safely. I think if we don't have the discussion that we've had over the last 2 to 3 years, that probably gets really ugly there.
Michael? And they had a time. Just proud of them. Just proud.
Well, I'm glad to see you're seeing this more students. I'm glad you're seeing it on the high school level, on the middle school, elementary, Pop Warner level as well, because this is called being aware, understanding, having a level of consciousness, which is critically important. All right. I want to certainly thank the folks from the National Alliance of Public Charter Schools and the School Leaders of Color for asking us to broadcast our show from here. Again, it's amazing to me, we had our town hall on Friday in Atlanta, and I've had people who said, why are you so adamant about this? Because it's one thing. These are our children. These are our kids. I'm glad as hell my parents were adamant about sending me to a magnet school. in a predominantly black elementary school, middle school, and high school. I'm glad to see parents saying, I care about my children and I want the best for them. And so I need black folks, okay, to stop these little silly fights back and forth and to understand that there were black people who created schools because we had no choice. There are black people who said, we're going to take the control of our kids' education because we want to make sure that they have a much better life. You need to go read The Education of Blacks in the South, 1860 to 1935 by James D. Anderson. You need to read to see how it was black folks who created publicly financed education in the South after the Civil War. You need to read about the Rosenwald schools and how it was black folks who actually raised 2/3 of the money to fund those schools, and he funded 1/3. You need to read those stories. We are 24 years away from African Americans and Latinos and Asians and Native Americans being the majority in America. And we cannot be in a situation where if you look at the current reading numbers and the math numbers, if that doesn't change, then we're going to have the demographic numbers, but we're going to be simply illiterate and not being able to take advantage of our numbers. This generation has to be willing to change that. You cannot have majority black, predominantly black schools in the South where 5% of the kids, like the one school in Atlanta, elementary school, are reading on grade level. 5%. That means 95% not reading on grade level. And so if you oppose charters, that's your business. If you don't like vouchers, that's your business. But I'll be damned if I'm going to be one of the folks to look my nieces and the nephews in the eye and look their children's children in the eye and say, I didn't fight for them when I had the opportunity. And so that's why we're here, and we want you to, of course, be involved as well. Folks, be sure to support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. And so we want you to join. We want your dollars. Every dollar you give goes to support this show because we want to be able to have a place where we can speak to our issues, control our narrative, but also requires us to fund our freedom. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow from D.C. I got to go. Holla! You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.